Longevity. Call 888-8000-PLC or go to PrincetonLongevityCenter.com. Call 888-8000-PLC. That's 888-8000-PLC.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
WMAL News at 5. I'm Rachel Sutherland. As the pressure mounts on Congress to come up with a budget deal to avoid a government shutdown, President Biden with some stark warnings.
After a meeting in San Francisco with science and tech advisors, the president told reporters,
if we have a government shutdown, a lot of vital work in science and health could be impacted, from cancer research to food safety.
He went on to urge Republicans in the House to do their job and fund the government. The president was also asked if a shutdown was inevitable. He replied, nothing in politics is inevitable. Earlier this week, the president also said a shutdown would mean nearly 7 million low-income women and children would see a sudden loss of food benefits. There have also been warnings that a shutdown would mean military members won't get paid and there'd be a disruption of air travel. Jill Nato, Fox News.
If you're a federal worker, a government shutdown, of course, would mean no paycheck until it's over. So what are your options?
If you're furloughed, you can apply for unemployment, but you have to do it in the jurisdiction where you work, not where you live. And you don't need to show you're looking for other work. But Congressman Jamie Raskin says once the government reopens and you get back pay,
they would have to repay the state for the money that's essentially been floated.
But you may not get unemployment in time to make up for that first missed paycheck. OPM says most states issue payments within 14 to 21 days after you file your claim. Heather Curtis on WMAL and WMAL.com.
With crime spiraling in D.C. and homicides topping 200 so far this year, a D.C. Council committee is beginning the confirmation process of acting police chief Pamela Smith.
Judiciary Committee Chair Brooke Pinto acknowledging the officer shortage.
The immediate challenge for MPD is to find ways to use the personnel that we do have more effectively.
While Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie wants to see officers out of their cruisers and walking the beat.
I knew the officers who were walking in my neighborhood.
Councilmember Breon Nadeau also pointed to D.C.'s shutdown crime lab, the troubled 911 call center, and lack of prosecutions by the federally run U.S. Attorney's Office.
I just recently declined to prosecute 67% of D.C. cases.
Barbara Britt, WMAL and WMAL.com.
Checking your money, the Dow closed down 69 points, and NASDAQ ended the day 29 higher. WMAL News Time 5:03. Traffic and weather next. Then more Vince Coglianese News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Do you need mortgage advice?
WMAL makes sense of the home buying process.
Weekends.
Check out our complete show lineup at WMAL.com/schedule.
Making sense of your life.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
At Bank of America, there's one question we ask our customers to learn what matters most. It's not, how much money do you have? It's not even, how much money would you like to have? No, our question isn't about money. It's about you.
Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Vince Coglianese.
Good afternoon. 5:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Remember how I said there's constantly breaking news coming out about the Biden family, evidence of their corruption? We get more now. It's just, he's done. I mean, at this point, right, they're going to give him the hook. House investigators releasing new emails showing that Hunter Biden pressured the new prosecutor in Ukraine after Viktor Shokin was canned to not continue any further investigation into Burisma. Not to investigate Burisma. It's a letter dated 9 July 2016 sent to Yuri Lutsenko, the new prosecutor in Ukraine. And it says, Dear General Prosecutor, we, the undersigned, are members of Burisma's board of directors, yada, yada, yada. And basically saying, get off our backs. And at the bottom, there are three signatures. One is a guy called Alan Apter is the chairman of the board at Burisma. Then there's Alexander Kwasniewski, who is an independent director at Burisma. And then there's, oh, look, right there, Hunter Biden, independent director at Burisma. So Hunter Biden trying to warn the new guy, don't you bother looking into us, what we're going on. At this point, so if Joe Biden got Victor Shokin fired in order to open an investigation into Burisma, wouldn't he have already told his son, like, hey, get off the plane. Don't just bail out now. Get your parachute and leap, because the last place you want to be is Burisma. I'm getting this guy fired so an investigation can start into Burisma. That's the logic the left has been using on this saga. He got the guy fired to investigate corruption. Really? Because it sure looks like he got him fired to stop the investigation into Burisma. Honestly. The other piece of information that's just coming out now is that ahead of Joe Biden's visit to Ukraine, at one point, Burisma was given all of his talking points in advance. They were all sent to Burisma. Yeah, it's all fine. Everything's fine. There's no corruption here. Remarkable. So more details as they literally come out during the program. We've got a lot of those today. And again, you can join us at 888-630-9625. We've got some phone calls lined up. We've got Mike in Washington, D.C., line 1. Mike, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Well, I hear that Biden's potential replacement might be at the debate tonight, and that is that Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, there are these reports that Gavin Newsom is going to be either in attendance or somewhere around the debate site tonight. The debate is taking place in California in Simi Valley. He's the governor there. And as of last week, the report was that he would be attending the Republican presidential debate. What do you think that's about, Mike?
Well, isn't that just lovely? If he's going to be there tonight, then that if I want to have a breakout moment in Mr. Gavin Newsom when it comes to my debate, with Frank Honors, I would invite him up on the stage.
For sure. Yeah, he heard that television cameras were going to be in his state, and he rushed to get in front of them.
There you go. And that would be all, well, it might upstage, I hate to say this, Trump, but that happens. But if I was running for the highest office in last year, come on up on the stage. I hear that a lot of people are fleeing your state because of the crime and violence and stuff.
For sure.
And I also heard that you discriminate against biological females in your state by not putting the female prisoners in a protected class and letting those dudes in the dress go in there and making babies in prisons.
Yeah.
So you want to be president, huh?
Yeah.
If I really want to have a breakout moment and I want to get more media attention to myself, I say, okay, well, this is what I plan on doing. If you vote for me for president, I'm going to become the first president in history to make heterosexual rights the law or the land, just like President Barack Obama and Joe Biden made LGBTQ rights. They laid a pavement for that to be the law of the land.
Sure.
And then to really drive the Democrats crazy, I would bring Clarence Thomas in. He'll help me on it. Really drive them nuts if they do that.
Mike's got a lot of plans to drive these Democrats crazy. Mike, so Gavin Newsom, you can detect that. We can all smell it, can't we? What Gavin Newsom is up to.
He's the replacement. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, so he goes to this debate tonight, right? He'll either be in the crowd or outside somewhere, and he's obviously trying to get some camera time. The other thing we saw about Gavin Newsom this week is he's going to do a debate against Ron DeSantis soon, where Sean Hannity's going to host a debate between the two of them, and Gavin Newsom will represent the face of the entire Democrat Party. You don't do that unless you are kind of lying in wait for Joe Biden to get the hook, right, Mike?
Well, why let DeSantis have the first crack on him if he's going to show up? And if I want to outstage DeSantis, I'm going to go after him first. If he's that dumb enough to show up, then all bets are off the table. Mm-hmm. They change the rules, you know?
All right, Mike, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. Mike calling attention to Gavin Newsom's shenanigans today. Clearly, he's putting a little extra hair gel in today, and he's off to the debate to catch some attention. Let us see. Well, Chris is calling in from Thurmont, Maryland here on line 2. Chris, good afternoon. You have some suspicions about Newsom.
Yeah, I actually do. I think he's going to be taking notes on how he and DeSantis are going to be having a debate coming up.
Right.
So I think he's trying to take notes and see where he needs to go. So
Yeah, kind of to size him up, get in the room with him, take a look at him, and see what he's got to do to beat him in this debate.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to have a live audience for this debate between the two of them. I do know that Newsom was against it. He doesn't want an audience there because it's pretty hard to convince an audience to like Gavin Newsom's policies, to get them to applaud. He was worried that Ron DeSantis would get too much applause in that environment. But you're right. He will have an opportunity to see him in the flesh debate tonight. But here's Ron DeSantis' challenge. He has to actually do something that is worthwhile, that draws some attention to this campaign, because it's not going well, Chris.
No, nobody's is, other than Donald Trump's. And obviously Joe Biden's isn't going very well either. But
they've got other problems.
But so. Yeah, no, that was my thought, that's why Gavin Newsom's going to be there, because he wants to see, and Gavin Newsom is not a good debater.
Oh, is that so? I can't remember ever watching a Gavin Newsom debate, so I'm relying on your memory here, Chris. But I do remember him sitting. I do remember him sitting with Adam Carolla for Adam Carolla's podcast years ago. And Carolla asked him some of the most basic questions you could possibly ask a governor, and he was blabbering and going off in a million directions. He was incapable. It was so obvious to every listener that he was way out of his depth, and that was on like basic issues of governance. So I imagine he's not very good at debating.
No, it doesn't sound like it anyway. He gets too much into the weeds, and then he can't answer a basic question. Yeah. So and that's how they obfuscate.
For sure. All right, Chris, thank you. Yeah, he thinks he can just flash that winning smile, and we won't have to care at all about what he's actually saying. That's the plan there. Our friend Donna is in Frederick, Maryland. She's lined up on line 3. Hello, Donna.
Hi, Vince. It's so good to speak with you again. I've been mulling over this whole debate issue.
Yeah.
And I feel like the cart is rolling downhill without the horse in front of it. And what I mean is, no one, and that includes conservative media, is really discussing the issues of what transpired in 2020 and how that's going to be resolved going into 2024. So I'm looking at the 40,000-foot view going, what's wrong with this picture?
Yep.
Until we get that problem solved, we don't have a leg to stand on in this country. And that is the biggest concern I have going into 2024. And it's that simple. If you boil it down and you look at the big picture, and also take time to look at who's funding whom.
For sure.
It's a very interesting web that's been weaved.
Yep.
And to me, the world is a stage, Vince. And as Chris says, it's all a terrible TV show, which I'm sure we will witness.
It's true. It's a good line. And on that front, what you're talking about, the preparation for the actual the actual infrastructure of the election itself. How is it conducted?
Correct.
Can people believe in it? Is it credible? That's all really important. Yesterday I had an RNC official on, Tommy Pigott, and I was asking him that very question. What are you doing to kind of get ready for all of this? And he was talking about, in the states where they can't change the rules, where ballot harvesting proliferates, for instance, which is an awful thing. It's an awful way to conduct an election, to allow political operatives to handle ballots. They said they're no longer going to sit back and just kind of let it happen and then tell people, hey, just vote on election day. They're going to take advantage of the rules as they exist in any respective state. And that is, of course, what you have to do. You have to do that. So ballot harvesting, if it's legal, Republicans better ballot harvest their butts off in order to gain an advantage in a system that is corrupt as that is. And meanwhile, in terms of some state fixes, you look at places like Georgia and Texas, there have been laws that have come to pass since the last election designed to make things better. And we've actually seen it in work in places like Georgia, where there's no longer you can just randomly sign an absentee ballot, and then the election system receives your ballot, and then they decide whether or not your signature actually matches the one they have on file. And because that is a corrupt system, where somebody looks at it and goes, you know what, this Republican, I don't think their signature matches. All right, and throw that one out. So they throw out a ballot. You have to put your driver's license number on these ballots now. You actually have to match up with your ID. So there are improvements that have taken place in some of these states, and that's critical. And then finally, the legal front, Donna. we've got to have lawyers fanned out, just filing lawsuit after lawsuit with aggression to ensure the integrity of an election in every state in the country. Because the left is fighting tooth and nail to undermine all of it, right? I mean, you talk about the money. You've got organizations right now funded by the left, the same organizations who are crawling state to state to try and get Donald Trump removed from the ballot, not even to allow voters to consider him. Mm-hmm. So the meddling is in full force, and Republicans better be equipped to confront it.
Yeah, and I think they're underestimating the power of MAGA. And MAGA is not just Republicans. We've absorbed in that group many independents, many Democrats. People are seeing the world as it is finally. And honestly, I think we're all sickened by what the media has done to upend our republic. That's the part that concerns me the most. And I think we all have to coalesce around one another, regardless of your affiliation. It's about the power of the people.
Yeah.
That's what this election's going to be.
For sure. And tell the truth a lot, because the media is not. And in order to and that's really the big sin here, is if our major news outlets, the people who are responsible for our civic understanding, are distorting what's actually going on, they're corrupting the whole process. If the people are in charge of our system, they need to be equipped with good information, and we've got a media who's actively working to sabotage that. That's a deeply unfortunate reality, which is why so many of us need to speak up.
Information warfare, Vince. That's what it is. Information warfare. It's a war for our minds, and we have to defect from that and find other ways around them and do our own research, our own homework, and it's amazing what you'll find when you do that.
Donna, thank you, as always. Appreciate your call today.
My pleasure.
All right, let's see here. We'll take a quick break for traffic. We'll get back to some of your calls here in a moment. And then I've got to talk about what they're doing to Trump. Speaking of election meddling, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. All the screaming headlines yesterday. Like, Trump's business is going to be destroyed now. Have you seen this? They're going to destroy his entire New York business on the basis of literally nothing. It's just Democrats making things up and then using the government to hurt their political opponents. I'll give you the details in a moment. It's 5:20 now.
Thursday, we'll have a full wrap-up of the GOP debate, plus President Trump's remarks to striking UAW workers in Michigan. O'Connor and Company, 5 to 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Yeah, O'Connor and Company. Why does he sound so chipper? Doesn't he get up early? Let's take a call from Dan in Fredericksburg now. Dan, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I think that what we're going to see is going to be something pulled right out of House of Cards pretty soon. But Barack Obama is pulling all the strings anyways, and I think, like Emperor Palpatine in the Star Wars, he's the guy to do it. So what's first going to happen is whoever's telling Dianne Feinstein what to do is going to tell her she needs to resign because of frail health. Once she's out, Barack Obama convinces Kamala Harris to resign as vice president and go back and be a senator from California. He gets somebody that's not a threat to anybody to become, or he gets himself to be in as the vice president. He tells Kamala Harris, now that you're a senator, give it a few months. You can then criticize Joe Biden for having dementia and declare your candidacy for the presidency. However, before she does that, Barack Obama will use the 25th Amendment to get the rest of the cabinet to declare Joe mentally incompetent. Barack Obama becomes president of the United States, and he's only been president for 8 years, and he can still finish out this term. And that's how they clear the deck.
Now, that's a heck of a theory. If all of this comes to pass, I assure you we will be replaying this audio as evidence that Dan in Fredericksburg called it a long time ago. He knew exactly what was going to happen. Thank you very much, Nostradamus. I appreciate it. We'll see. I don't even know if that's possible. Can Barack Obama be vice president? I guess that's the way to circumvent the 22nd Amendment. I suppose so. I don't think it would work. Anyway, I'll explore. We'll see if I can get you an answer coming up. And more importantly, what's going on with Trump as they try and destroy this man's life. They are relentless.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:35 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Just a quick update for you. Dan called a few minutes ago. He had posited a theory that maybe Obama could finagle his way in to become vice president and then force Joe out of office and then become president again for a third term. I think the answer to that question is he can't do that, although the Constitution has really never stopped Democrats, has it? But there are two amendments in play here. The 22nd Amendment, of course, which says that no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And then if you go to the 12th Amendment, it says no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. So with those two amendments in mind, Obama would be precluded from that particular stunt, unless he became Speaker of the House and just kept on working his way back down the chain. But whatever, we'll see. I don't think that's going to happen. As nefarious as these guys are. But if it does, again, we'll replay the audio of Dan's call. Okay, and speaking of how nefarious these Democrats are, though, I've got to bring you to this news about Donald Trump's wealth now under fire. Hopefully he gets a question on this today from the Daily Caller's Hank Rogers. I'll give you some inside info. My buddy, colleague Hank Rogers is flying with Trump. I think he's flying with him right now to Michigan. And I talked to Hank before he went, Henry Rogers, before he left, and we were going over questions for what you might ask the former president of the United States. And I did suggest that he ask a bit about this. Is his New York business actually in peril as a result of what the left is doing here? The headline is New York judge rules Trump committed fraud while building real estate empire. This is Fox News' report on the subject. A judge ruled Tuesday that Donald Trump and his company committed fraud while building his real estate empire after New York Attorney General Letitia James, lunatic Democrat who promised that she would do everything within her power and even outside of her power to destroy Donald Trump. She ran on destroying Donald Trump. Letitia James accused the former president of overvaluing his assets. Overvaluing his assets. Judge Arthur Engoron, who is also a Democrat, ruled Tuesday that the former president and his company deceived banks, insurers, and others by massively overvaluing his assets and exaggerating his net worth on paperwork used in making deals and securing financing. All right, so what they're alleging here is that Trump overstated the value of his assets in order to use them as collateral to get a loan. Right? So if you get a loan, the bank wants to know, what do you own? What do you currently own that, if necessary, we could seize as collateral for failing to pay your loan back? And you tell the bank, right? And so what the state of New York is alleging is that Donald Trump defrauded these banks when he took loans from them by overvaluing his assets. Now, notice what New York is not saying. Notice what New York is not saying. That any of the banks feel defrauded. There is not a single bank who has come forward to claim that they were defrauded by Donald Trump. Why is that? Because they made massive profits from him. He borrowed their money, and then he paid it back. And when he paid it back with interest. This is how loans work. And they made a lot of money, and they are perfectly happy to do business with Donald Trump. None of these banks are alleging that they were stiffed by him. This is completely an invention of Democrats in New York politics. This judge, Arthur Engoron, is now a water carrier for New York Attorney General Letitia James for a ridiculous allegation against the guy. Oh, he overvalued his assets. He exaggerated his net worth. Engoron ordered that some of Trump's business licenses be rescinded as punishment, making it difficult or impossible for him to do business in New York. The judge said he would continue to have an independent monitor oversee the Trump organization's operations, the Trump campaign not immediately responding to Fox News Digital's request for comment. Now, by now you may have heard this, but let me share the details here. One of the things the judge said that is patently absurd is that Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, which sits on, I think it's about 20 acres in Palm Beach, his Mar-a-Lago club, the judge said is valued in around $18 million. $18 million. That's absurd. If you look at any of the real estate in the vicinity of Mar-a-Lago, it is all hundreds of millions of dollars. There's a 2-acre lot that sits right by Mar-a-Lago. It's a 5-minute drive away from Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago is on primo real estate. It is oceanfront. It goes from ocean to waterway. It is connected on both sides. It's 20 acres of land. It's a massive property, beautiful building, historic building. 5 minutes away from Mar-a-Lago is a 2-acre wooded lot. And it is, when I say wooded, it's literally just covered in trees. There's nothing on it. Do you know what it's listed at right now? $150 million. $150 million for trees. $150 million. And so Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million? Come on. The whole thing is just ridiculous. This judge is a jerk. He's lying. It's only 18 million. Come on. So, and then he says, okay, and you remove, and so he gets to do that and say, well, Trump doesn't have his business licenses anymore in New York. He doesn't get to use them. They're suspended or whatever. You can't operate in New York anymore. I'm sorry. Does Donald Trump operate in New York? Yeah, big time. He's got a whole tower. He's got a bunch of buildings in New York City. You know, because kind of his hometown, right? And they're trying to hurt him in his financial situation. So we'll see if we hear more from Trump soon on this subject. Like I said, I told Henry, I was like, it would be a good question to ask him, how much is the left damaging him here? Because they are out to get him, aren't they? They want to lock him up. They want to take away his money. They want to hurt his children. They raid the family home. Remember, they go through the underwear drawers, Melania Trump. This guy can't catch a break. They're like, how many indictments have they dropped on him now? Nearly 100. It's in the 90s. Across all these jurisdictions. On the most specious, novel, never heard of grounds. Going after him from a document dispute? The former president of the United States? It's insane. Going after him in New York, you have Alvin Bragg, this ridiculous human being, going after Donald Trump for violating federal election laws? How does a New York City DA prosecute federal election laws? And how does he even arrive at the conclusion that Donald Trump violated a federal election law? It has to do with Stormy Daniels. The whole thing is so perverted. But it's all an abuse of power. And so this is why people, this is why Donald Trump is 10 points more popular than he was when he left office. Have you seen this? All of the data are showing that people are like, I kind of regret not having him in office anymore. So now they're going after his cash. They're making up numbers about Mar-a-Lago. And again, I haven't heard a lot of people emphasize this point, so I just want to leave this with you. The banks are not alleging that they were defrauded. It is completely made up out of whole cloth by the Democrat prosecutor and the Democrat judge. That's what's going on there. If you're not Donald Trump, you're probably trying to figure out how you can survive your trip to and from work, especially if you work in a major Democrat city. You see all the looting going on in Philadelphia yesterday? Here's some of the audio of people just smashing their way through Philadelphia last night and stealing everything they could get their hands on. Are you listening to this woman? I think she's the one who's filming. She's laughing like a complete psychopath, like she's on something. She sounds like the Joker. She's
Oh my God!
And what she's observing is, as I said, people smashing their way into stores, places like the Apple Store, Lululemon, Foot Locker, sneakers being stolen, iPhones being stolen. You know what that sounds like, honestly? To me, I don't have a lot to compare it to, but demonic possession. Like, it sounds like demonic. It sounds like she's just completely lost touch with reality. Yeah. All right. So here's the sound of when the looters were targeting the Apple Store in Philadelphia. The new the iPhone 15 Pro Max is out, and you can get a great deal on it if you steal it. Take a listen. Got one. Aha. Free iPhones. Morons. The things they say, the Apple says that the anti-theft technology they have instantly disable all these phones anyway, so that it's just useless. But the thrill is there at least. At least they got a thrill, Vince, for stealing iPhones from an Apple store. And of course, driving up the cost of iPhones for the rest of us. What do you think happens when you ransack these places? How do they shore up their bottom line? They charge their customers more in order to cover for the losses, or they close. You see Target closing stores across the country now amid all this violence and theft. 9 stores in blue cities, in these Democrat cities, places like Portland, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, New York City. Target stores are closing because they've become, ironically, targets of people who are rushing in and stealing everything. And so they said, you know what? No Target for you. So Target disappears from a bunch of Democrat cities. The same is true of CVS, which is closing its drugstores, hundreds of them in these Democrat-run cities, because they're allowing crime to proliferate. It's bad news. It's really bad news. Here's Oakland yesterday. Business owners on strike, meaning they decided to close shop for the day in order to send a message to the government, the local government, that they do not feel safe and that their businesses are badly hurting.
It is enough that we are having to put up with this. This is enough. Can I hear enough? Enough. This is enough. Enough.
Organizers say when a legacy business like Le Cheval Restaurant in Oakland is forced to close due to crime, it's time to demand more.
Demand that our governments, city, state, federal, fulfill their end of the social contract to provide basic safety in our streets.
Hear, hear.
Without basic safety, there's no business. Without basic safety, there's no community.
And these are Democrats in a Democrat city. These business owners, they're probably Democrat voters. They're standing up there going, what are you going to do to keep my community safe?
Without safety, there's no city.
Oakland business owners who closed their stores showed up for a rally in front of Le Cheval. Some of the demands include a meeting with Governor Gavin Newsom and small businesses, state grants for struggling businesses, and more police.
If you look at Richmond, there is nothing like that.
Of course, it's such a Democrat solution. If you give us more money, it might help us. No. Take a criminal, throw them to the ground, arrest them, do the perp walk, make sure everybody knows there are consequences, get a speedy trial underway, lock them up, and keep them there. And make sure people know that this is terrible. And also get control of your sons. Get control of these boys who are ransacking everything. Knock some sense into them.
It's only Oakland. And if there's something wrong in Oakland, they need to fix it.
Derek Johnson owns Home of Chicken and Waffles. He closed for a few hours as part of the strike.
What I hope and what I urge that comes out of today is that the city wraps their arms around Le Cheval and those of us that are struggling to stay open.
In a statement to ABC 7 News, the city of Oakland points to efforts already underway, such as expanding police foot patrols in commercial districts, CHP helping with traffic enforcement, $2.5 million to improve the 911 response system, as well as numerous small business assistance programs.
Arrest, prosecute, consequences. Arrest, prosecute, consequences. We're putting more cops out there. Okay, that's fine. That's a good first step. But how many of these cops are in a situation where they make an arrest and they have no support from the prosecutors over them, especially if they're a Soros-funded prosecutor? Right here in D.C., 70% of arrests are not prosecuted. There's all sorts of people wearing the silver bracelets who never see their day in court. It never happens. There's, just release them. All right, I've got to get to this crime in Baltimore, too, because we've got a manhunt underway for a disgusting murderer. It's a huge story. And how did that guy get out? It turns out he was in custody. How did he get out? The predictable answer to that question coming up. It's 5:50 now.
Mark Levin, weeknights from 6 till 9
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
An awful story this week out of Baltimore. Headline here from the New York Post. Slain Baltimore tech CEO Pavla Lepera was found on her roof, suspect eyed in knife-point sex attack days earlier. The body of tech CEO Pavla Lepera was discovered on the roof of her swanky Baltimore apartment building after she was beaten to death. And her suspected killer is being investigated in connection with a knife-point sex attack and arson just days earlier. Lepera was 26, the co-founder of startup EcoMap Technologies. It was named this year to Forbes' 30 Under 30 list for social impact. She was reported missing Monday, and she was later found with blunt force trauma to her head, police said. She was reported to have been found inside of her swanky Mount Vernon apartment, but sources close to the investigation told the Baltimore Banner her badly beaten and partially clothed body was actually discovered on the building's roof. Jason Billingsley is considered the extremely dangerous 32-year-old with a violent past who is wanted on the charges of first-degree murder, reckless endangerment, assault, and other charges for this alleged murder, according to Baltimore cops. In fact, here is the acting police commissioner, Richard Worley, describing this man. Listen to this.
We implore residents to be aware of your surroundings at all times. This individual will kill and he will rape. He will do anything he can to cause harm. So please be aware of your surroundings.
This individual will kill and he will rape. He is a Tier 3 sex offender. He was busted in 2015, sentenced to 30 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to a first-degree sex offense. But he was popped out of jail recently. He only served 7 years, and that's thanks to Soros-funded former district attorney, now Marilyn Mosby. She decided, he's done enough time. So they let him go, and apparently his evil has struck again. We've got to put an end to this. We really do. All right, the great one, Mark Levin, up next. We'll keep tracking the news and share it with you right here on WMAL.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.